Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Randana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Randana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa, Parivadikacharya Ashtoto, the Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parivadikacharya Ashtoto, the Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktabinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of March 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're beginning chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga on page 139. Arjuna Vacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhi Janardana tat kim karmani gode mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Page 139. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani gode mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani ghore mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani ghore mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani ghore mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani ghore mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkin karmani ghore mam niyojayasi Kṛṣṇa. Zoom land, anyone? No. Okay. Arjuna Uvacha, Arjuna said, Jayasi, better, chet, if, karmanaha, than fruit of action, te, by you, mata, is considered, buddhi, intelligence, janardana, O Krishna, tat, therefore, kim, why, karmani, in action, gode, ghastly, mam, me, niyojayasi, you are engaging, Kṛṣṇa, O Krishna. Translation. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Kṛṣṇa, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, has very elaborately described the constitution of the soul in the previous chapter, with a view to delivering his intimate friend Arjuna from the ocean of material grief. And the path of realization has been recommended, buddhi-yoga, or Krishna consciousness. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia, and one with such a misunderstanding often withdraws to a secluded place to become fully Krishna conscious by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. But without being trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it is not advisable to chant the holy name of Krishna in a secluded place, where one may acquire only cheap adoration from the innocent public. Arjuna also thought of Krishna consciousness, or buddhi-yoga, or intelligence and spiritual advancement of knowledge, as something like retirement from active life and the practice of penance and austerity at a secluded place. In other words, he wanted to skillfully avoid the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. But as a sincere student, he placed the matter before his master and questioned Krishna as to his best course of action. In answer, Lord Krishna elaborately explained karma yoga, or work in Krishna consciousness, in this third chapter. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So Arjuna, representing us, is voicing somewhat puzzlement. There seems to be a contradiction. The chapter concluded, chapter 2 concluded, with a description of Brahma Nirvana. Now, you don't normally think of Nirvana as fighting on a battlefield. So and Krishna kept emphasizing this buddhi-yoga. Remember buddhi-yoga, which seems to emphasize the engagement of the intelligence and not so much fighting on the battlefield. So in this way, he's helping to clarify by asking these questions how one can act very vigorously, but still be in yoga, still be situated in yoga, in samadhi, in full Krishna consciousness. And indeed, that is the art, yoga karma kaushalam. We heard in the last chapter, I think is there. There's a verse. This is the art of all work, and how to maintain yourself, but at the same time progress in devotional service by linking your activities, everything you have, the central activities, the mind, the intelligence, to Krishna. There's a way of doing all of that. And so it's not a question of inertia, it's a question of activity, but in a certain consciousness that purifies the senses, the mind, the intelligence. So one becomes progressively Krishna conscious. And Krishna will explain this in terms of karma yoga. And especially the emphasis is on not incurring any more karma, either good or bad, and gradually eliminating all your previous karmic reactions that are either good or bad. It doesn't make any difference. A good karmic reaction that you may get from performing a sacrifice also will bind you to this world. So if the default goal basically is to break free of the bonds of birth, death, old age, and disease, then we have to learn how to live in this world without becoming entangled. The technical word is naishkarmya. You're doing all kinds of things, but none of the karma is adhering to you. You're not going to get any result from it because the fruits are being given to Krishna, and it's a selfless service. So now Arjuna will continue in this theme and seem to say that Krishna has described some equivocal words here. Unless there's any question or comment on that first verse. Vyamashreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vadanishchitya yena shreyo hamapnavam. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Purport. In the previous chapter, as a prelude to the Bhagavad Gita, many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi-yoga, control of the senses by intelligence, work without food of desire, and the position of the neophyte. This was all presented unsystematically. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action and understanding. Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these apparently confusing matters so that any common man could accept them without misinterpretation. Although Krishna had no intention of confusing Arjuna by any jugglery of words, Arjuna could not follow the process of Krishna consciousness, either by inertia or by active service. In other words, by his questions, he is clearing the path of Krishna consciousness for all students who seriously want to understand the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Now notice Prabhupada uses this word, Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these apparently confusing matters so that any common man could accept them without misinterpretation. Notice the word Vyamashrein Eva. That Eva was started out as an Eva. Now Prabhupada says certainly here, but another meaning is as if. No, Arjuna is not saying, you're speaking equivocally. He's saying they seem to be equivocal, apparently equivocal. You see what I'm saying? And therefore I'm becoming confused. Please clear it up for me. In other words, he's saying the defect is in me. I'm not really understanding how you're doing, but it could be easily misunderstood by us, and therefore he's asking this question so Krishna will clear it up. That's really what's going on. Arjuna is being very polite here with this Eva. Okay, so let's see how Krishna begins to clear it up. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Lokesmin Vividhanishta Pura Prokta Mayanaka Jnana yogena sankhyanam, karma yogena yoginam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Purport. In the second chapter, verse 39, the Lord explained two kinds of procedures, namely Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga, or buddhi-yoga. In this verse, the Lord explains the same more clearly. Sankhya Yoga, or analytical study of the nature of spirit and matter, is the subject matter for persons who are inclined to speculate and understand things by experimental knowledge and philosophy. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness, as it is explained in the 61st verse of the second chapter. You may remember that is the verse where Krishna says, Mat para. That's the first time he mentions himself. Yeah. The Lord has explained also in the 39th verse that by working by the principles of buddhi-yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action. And furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. The same principle is more clearly explained in the 61st verse, that this buddhi-yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. And in this way, all the senses can be brought under control very easily. Therefore, both the yogas are interdependent as religion and philosophy. Religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. This is one of the most famous sentences in Prabhupada's books. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers who are also sincerely searching after the absolute truth come in the end to Krishna consciousness. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole process is to understand the real position of the self in relation to the super-self. The indirect process is philosophical speculation, by which gradually one may come to the point of Krishna consciousness. And the other process is directly connecting everything with Krishna in Krishna consciousness. Of these two, the path of Krishna consciousness is better because it does not depend on purifying the senses by a philosophical process. Krishna consciousness is itself the purifying process, and by the direct method of devotional service, it is simultaneously easy and sublime. So in other Bhagavad Gitas, you'll find that chapter 2 is called Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga, because there's so much emphasis on understanding the distinction between the self, the Atma, and the body. This is the basic. This is the A of the ABCs of devotional life, of spiritual life. To understand your spirit, not matter. And therefore, your activities should be directed toward realizing more and more the nature of yourself as a spiritual being, and the nature of the Supreme Self, God. But it begins with this intellectual analysis. And we find that in some other chapters also. Just like the 7th chapter gives us the energies. Bhuma, Apa, Onano, Vayu, Kangmano, Buddhadeva Cha. This is classic Sankhya. There's earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Then there's the 10 senses, the knowledge-acquiring senses, right? And the eyes, and the taste, and the touch, and the smell, and the hearing. And the active senses. The hands and the feet, right? Very important. And the procreative and excretive organs, and the voice, very, very significant. These are 5. So then you have those 18, right? You have the gross and subtle objects, and then you have the sense gratifatory, the sense perceptions, senses, knowledge acquiring, and active. And then you have 5 more, the object of the senses. The sensations themselves, the taste and the hearing. So you get these 23, 24 different things, and you get the soul, and then you get the super soul. So this is an analysis. But how to realize all that? What good does the knowledge do, now that we know that? That's the process of devotional service. To engage the active senses and the knowledge-acquiring senses, and the mind, the intelligence, and the ego in the service of Krishna for ultimate liberation and return back home, back to Godhead. Not liberation for liberation's sake. In fact, ultimately we don't care about liberation. We should care right away in the neophyte stage, because that's an impetus to keep moving forward. You know, I like to give this analogy that Krishna is all attractive. He's attracting us with his form, with his name, with his prasadam, with his devotees, with his pastimes, with everything. He's all attractive, right? But we're also attracted to Maya, right? And Maya is the reflected, and we can't see the spiritual. So the reflected has become very attractive, right? So we have to be attracted away from that. So how to do that? How to engage? That's the process of devotional service. And so how to keep us on the path? Okay, birth, death, old age, and disease. If you don't go back to Godhead, you're going to die repeatedly, right? And you're going to suffer these things. So that's behind us is in front of us is Krishna attracting us home back to Godhead, all attractive. But behind us is Maya Devi, Durga there with the tridents, the threefold miseries. Hey, keep on the path or you'll be suffering, you know. Isn't it? So that's why Krishna says, I'll say, you say, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. So anudarshanam means to see carefully. Don't forget it. These four things: birth, death, old age, and disease. I like to put them in order: birth, old age, disease, and death. That's the order it actually happens. Krishna spoke it that way, you know, because it fit into the meter. But anyway, so the use of the intelligence, buddhi-yoga, is essential. Keeping, you know, you have to be conscious. If you're going to be Krishna conscious, you have to be conscious of what's going on. But at the same time, activity is important. What do you do on the basis of intelligence? You act in a certain way. With material intelligence, you're very, you know what you have to do in order to get money and buy what you need to buy and all this stuff. Intelligence is always there, you know. But to transcendentalize the intelligence, Krishnaize the intelligence, then we have to hear from Krishna and his pure representative. And then we can know how to act so that we become liberated gradually rather than more and more entangled. It's actually scientific, and it works. So these apparently equivocal statements of Krishna, exalting intelligence and then exalting action, seems to be contradictory to Arjuna. But they're not, and that's why he says Eva, and Krishna will clear everything up now. So there's two classes. There's the Jnana Yoga Sankyanam, those who analyze everything, and Karma Yoga and the Yoginam. There's the yogis who perform activity, but they're complementary as religion and philosophy. Religion here means dharma, activity. Philosophy means understanding. So we have both. So much philosophy in the books, but so much activity based on the books. Right? Both are necessary. Okay, so should we go on? Go ahead.
Prabhu, in the purport of the second verse, it is said that many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, and so on. So it is said that Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga are separate.
Okay, so we're in this is text 2 now? Back to text 2?
Yeah, this sentence is in purport of text 2.
Okay, yes, I see, right.
Like it is said that Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga are different paths. But when you see the purport of the third purport, it said namely Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. So does it mean Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga are same or?
Yeah, because, you know, Prabhupada says Karma Yoga or Krishna consciousness, Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness. So like the two things are equivalent to the same thing, they're equivalent to each other. So Karma Yoga, as I said, involves the intelligence also. And real Buddhi Yoga culminates in activity. So really they're complementary. That's the thing. And they can be, you know, the perfect Karma Yoga involves the intelligence. And successful Buddhi Yoga means that you're acting in Krishna consciousness. So there's a lot of overlap.
In Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, total how many yogas are there, Prabhu?
Well, the thing is, Prabhupada usually doesn't, in Bhagavad Gita, he says there's 3. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. What happened to Dhyana Yoga? There's a whole chapter. So apparently he subsumes Dhyana Yoga under Jnana Yoga, because it involves the mind, the mind and controlling, stuff like that. That's. I'm sorry? Well, no, here it says karma yoga and buddhi yoga are the same. It'll all become clear. It's apparently equivocal, but it'll be cleared up. You'll see. Text 4. Nakarma nama narambhan naishkamyam purushoshnate nachasanyasanareva siddhim samadhigacchati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Purport. The renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of the prescribed form of duties which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyas. According to the empirical philosophers, simply by adopting sannyas or retiring from fruitive activities, one at once becomes as good as Narayan. But Lord Krishna does not approve this principle. Without purification of heart, sannyas is simply a disturbance to the social order. On the other hand, if someone takes to the transcendental service of the Lord, even without discharging his prescribed duties, whatever he may be able to advance in the cause is accepted by the Lord. Buddhi-yoga. Svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Even a slight performance of such principles enables one to overcome great difficulties. So, here we say, Nakarma namanayaramba naishkamyam purushoshase, that this word naishkarmya is important. Naishkarmya means you're doing all kinds of activities, but there's no reaction. That's why he'll talk about, I think in the next chapter, one who sees action in inaction and inaction in action is a wise soul. So what does that mean? It means that if someone is still filled with all kinds of material desires and tries to repress, his activities, trying to get free that way, then he's still active because the mind is all over the place. The mind is pulling him here, he's pulling it back, pulling it. He's active, but internally. So there's action and inaction. The body's inactive, but he's active. But we want to attain inaction in action, meaning that we can do all kinds of things, just like there's so much kitchen duty to do, and this duty and that duty, kirtan, is action. But there's no fruit of desire. This is ideal. In other words, I'm doing, whether I'm sweeping the floor or dancing in ecstasy, I'm doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. It's not for my pleasure, it's for Krishna's pleasure. And I find myself in bliss by doing that. But the motive isn't, I'm going to be blissful. Today I'm really going to be blissful. You'll never be blissful that way. The key is to forget about your own bliss. Just think of Krishna's happiness. Think that this is for Krishna. Let me do it nicely for Krishna. And then you look at the deity. Oh, he's smiling more broadly at me than ever before. In other words, our perfection is to become like the hand. The hand's perfection is to do what I want it to do. As soon as it doesn't do that, it's troublesome, It becomes trouble. We were trouble in the spiritual world. That's why we're here. We were disturbing the other devotees. And, in this little bubble of Vaikuntha, if you become a disturbance, you have to leave. You're not following. So, this nakarma nadanarambhan, naishkamya, you cannot enjoy naishkarmya. Naishkarmya is a nice state to be in. You're doing all kinds of things, but you're not being entangled. In fact, you're getting rid of previous karma. You're clearing the slate, and you're not getting any new karma. That's Krishna conscious activity. And one of the descriptions is naishkarmya. And so, just by renouncing without being prepared in your consciousness, and thinking you can take sannyas and get the benefits of sannyas, it's a farce. You can't do it. There has to be that internal development of true renunciation. One will not attain siddhi in this way, not siddhi that way. Okay. Let's see. And then Prabhupada cites this verse in the previous chapter, Svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. This is a contrast. If someone without purification simply adopts the sannyas order, it's simply a disturbance in society. But if someone takes to the transcendental service of the Lord genuinely, even without discharging his prescribed duties, whatever he may be able to advance is accepted by the Lord. This is savolpam, even a little tiny bit, is never lost, and can protect one from the most fearful type of danger. That's what the fearful type of danger is: losing the human form of life. So even just beginning Krishna consciousness, you're sure of a human form of life in your next life. But we should not even want that form of material life. We should want our spiritual form. But it's encouraging that, that even just a beginner will be protected from that most fearful danger. Okay, so let's go on. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatatischatya karma krit Karyate yavasha karma sarvak prakati jaya gunai. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Purport. It is not a question of embodied life, but it is the nature of the soul to be always active. Without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. As such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by the illusory energy. In contact with material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes, and to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. But if the soul is engaged in his natural function of Krishna consciousness, whatever he is able to do is good for him. The Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17 affirms this. Prabhupada will often quote this verse. Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhajang hare bhajan napakvo tapate tato yadi yatra kvava bhadram abhura mushrikim Kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching this point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sannyas, or any purificatory process, is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. So you understand the import here, that this is Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, encouraging him to write the Bhagavatam. This is in the very important chapter, 5th chapter of the 1st canto. So Vyasadeva had written all these other literatures, the different Puranas, the Mahabharata, which has the Bhagavad Gita in it after all. But he was still dissatisfied. And the reason is because he kind of hedged his preaching, He didn't write a book that was solely and wholly about devotional service, glorifying Krishna and his Leela and like that. There was the Padma Puran, which has plenty about Krishna pastimes, but it also had other things. And in the Mahabharata, there's so many different stories, so many different things, but there's also Bhagavad Gita. But the point is, he felt dissatisfied because he hadn't written the Bhagavatam yet, wholly and solely, And so this verse is by way of saying that if someone gives up his duties in society and takes up the service of the lotus feet of Hari, Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhajam herer, bhajan apakvo, but his bhajan is not cooked. It's not complete. In other words, he falls away. Patit, tato yadi. And if he does that, then where is there any abhadra? Yatra kva va abhadram for him, a mushrikim. On the other hand, where is there any artha, any gain, for one who nicely follows his swadharma? At the end there it says, and he's abhajatam. He has no Krishna consciousness. So he's giving a very stark contrast. you've encouraged people to perform all kinds of material, dharmic activities, go to heaven and do all these different things. But that means they're just going to prolong their stay in this material world. That's ultimately, and what happened actually was that they would disregard the restrictions and use the Vedas as a means of cow slaughter. Because there's places where there's cow sacrifices, old cows to test the mantras, give them new birth. But they said, oh, look, we can offer the cow. So therefore Buddha came. He rejected the Vedas that Vyasadeva had written, and he preached ahimsa. But that's not going to work. We need the essence of the Vedic knowledge. So therefore, Sankaracharya was sent. We criticize his commentary for the Vedanta Sutra because it's impersonal, but he was re-establishing the authority of the Vedas with that because the Vedanta Sutra is part of the Vedic literature. And then came Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, and Lord Chaitanya to defeat the Mayavad philosophy and re-establish bhakti as the supreme lesson of the Vedic knowledge. And that's where we are today. But Prabhupada, he expresses it's just a battle to try to establish the authority of the Vedic literature, and that the goal of life is going back home, back to God, especially outside of India. So this is one of the verses that's very encouraging. It's like the verse that Prabhupada cites in the previous chapter, previous purport. And that is, Neha Brahmanashati Pratyavayana Vidyate. There's no loss of diminution. Even if you fall away, you're still protected from the most fearful type of danger, losing the human form of life and prolonging, that way. You'll take up Krishna consciousness next time, wherever you left off. But why prolong the agony? Why not advance as far as possible and even go back to Godhead in this lifetime? That's the logical thing to do. But even if you can't, nothing is lost. It's auspicious to chant one mantra, one name, read one word of the Bhagavad Gita. That's why Prabhupada said, he was so eager to get these books out so people could be saved. Okay, let's go on. Yeah, question? Comment?
Thank you, Prabhu. So this translation, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the mode of material nature. So my question is how the soul acquires qualities from the mode of material nature, how it works.
Well, if you read the third canto, you read how the false ego is kind of the interface between the soul and material nature. The false sense of self. If you're fully convinced that you're a spiritual being, you'll be in the spiritual world. But we didn't want that because we wanted to compete with Krishna. So therefore we need the material body. And to get the material body, that is built on the false ego. False ego interacting with the mode of passion produces the intelligence, I believe. The mode of goodness produces the mind. Mode of ignorance, all the senses, the sense objects. So that's, you can see how the modes of nature are intimately involved in the construction or the development of the body, of your identity. And if we are not serving Krishna, we're going to be tightly bound in those modes of nature. Daiviyesha guna mama maya adharatiya. This material energy is my energy, my divine energy. You cannot cross beyond it on your own. You're tightly bound up. And under the spell of Maya, convinced that we are this form and this is, like that. So all of that is being conducted by the modes of nature. And as we associate, we make our destiny, as we associate with the modes of nature. We have a certain tendency, but it can change in human form. We can be affected by the modes of passion or the mode of ignorance. And indeed, in the 14th chapter, you realize that sometimes the mode of goodness is ascendant, is dominant, sometimes passion, sometimes ignorance. So it's a very complicated affair. But that's what we're forced to act helplessly because our mind, our senses, our intelligence are colored by those modes. And we have a certain propensity, and we don't to go for this category of sense gratification, to strive for this, but it's all within the modes of nature, maybe a little on the mode of goodness. But that's not protection because it's, you can fall back again. So it's just like there's that famous illustration where the modes are in the sky and they have the ropes like a puppet, and it's like that. Unless you have any Krishna consciousness, which can loosen the bonds and ultimately cut them. We're just being pulled around, one after another. We think we're making progress, but what's the progress? In the end, you die, and if you act like a dog, you become a dog. Where did you go? You're just flailing around in the ocean. So that's the idea. You remember that verse I always like to chant? Kama dinam katina katita palita dunideshas tesham jata mayana karunanatrapano prashanti. In these two lines, the author of this verse is quoted in the CC, is describing that kama, etc., kama, krodha, lobha, moha, these are my masters, and they, for ages, for births and births. Katina katita palita, they've been ordering me to go here and do this and do that. But you don't even recognize that you're being ordered. You think I'm spontaneously attracted, right? You don't realize you're not your mind. Your mind is colored in this way. You're identifying fully with the mind and the body. So now this devotee says, but now my intelligence is awoken. How? By hearing Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, by associating with devotees. That's the great value. The intelligence, which is guiding you to go here and there, is now becoming purified. And you want to say, no, I'm not going to follow these demands and these orders of the modes of nature and my mad senses. That's what he's saying. Utsrijaitan, I'm rejecting these demands and commands that have been so painful. And now, because my intelligence has become stronger, and now, but I have to serve. That's our nature. So now I'm approaching you, O Lord of the Yadus, Krishna. Please engage me in your service. Abhayam, you are the source of fearlessness. Otherwise, the great fear, the dreadful fear of birth and death is present. So that's the answer. Is that when we say that we're conditioned, or when we're conditioned by the material energy, it means the modes of nature. Our act. That's the way in which material energy conditions us, and we act, as a mode of passion, mode of ignorance. I can't do anything. Let me just sleep. Nobody loves me. I mean, there's all kinds of ramifications of it. But in Krishna consciousness, you're constantly being pushed to a higher mode, and peaceful and joyful.
Everyone by default is like in mode. Whoever comes in the material world, in human body or any body, is by default in some mode. Yes.
And that's why at the end of the 14th chapter, Arjuna wants to know what's the characteristics of someone who's transcended the modes, and how does he transcend? So the first Krishna describes, and there's one thematic word you can remember, tulya, meaning heat and cold, pleasure and pain, infamy and praise is tulya, is aloof. In other words, you're not getting whipped around. And what's the means? Mam chiyova vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And what's that Brahman? Brahma bhuta prasanatma. So that's the answer. Without Krishna consciousness, you're going to be in the mode. It may be a mode of goodness, but then you're liable to get pulled down into the other modes. But to really be fixed in the mode of sattva, of pure goodness, Vasudev state, you have to practice pure devotional service. Hare Krishna. He had a comment or a question.
Does the fact that you're getting initiated have anything to do with the yourself being situated in the modes of nature, or it's exclusively your state of consciousness and activities in Krishna consciousness?
No, being initiated is a very important step, because it connects you to the parampara, to all the previous acharyas, and it's a strong commitment. It's you recognized, oh, this person is serious and ready to take vows, which you keep. And what kind of vows? Before the fire, before the devotees, before the deities. In other words, it's recognized that the conditioning is very, very strong. And we may, like so many people practice Krishna consciousness, but they're not initiated. So they're experiencing so much, but they also haven't really committed. They haven't taken any vows. And so when the mind is telling them to do this, well, okay, I mean, I'll become Krishna conscious tomorrow. I like Krishna consciousness. I'm going to go to the temple tomorrow, but today I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. But when you take initiation, then you have a personal relationship with the Guru, and you've taken all these vows, so you have a better chance of going on the right side, you know. So So initiation is very important, and it's said that initiation is a very important, is the transmission of knowledge, because when the knowledge is transmitted, then that strengthens the intelligence, and you become more sober-minded and more determined to follow everything. And you can, and when you actually, you know, follow strictly for some time, you build up your spiritual muscles, and Maya you're not as easy to fall into Maya. You know, you're not as liable to fall into Maya. So initiation is very, very important. You had something, okay? Bhakta Saul.
Very good. I just had a quick question earlier. You mentioned about us being in the spiritual world, and then we made the spiritual beings uncomfortable. We come back into the material world. And my question was, all right, let's say I come back in the material world and I successfully go through the cycle and I go back to Godhead.
No, I think you got that wrong. We don't go back to this material world.
No. But my question was, okay, it was just, after coming here and going back, is there a possibility of me wanting to be in the enjoyer in the spiritual world where I have to fall down? Because it says, like, what to say, I'm like... Well,
Krishna says, several places in the Gita, Yad gat vananavartante. Once going there, they don't come back here.
So I don't want to enjoy them.
You have somewhat of a, you know, there's a saying in English, once burned, twice shy. Prabhupada uses that analogy for like a little child, you know. He sees the flame burning on the stove, and he wants to touch his father. Says, no. But he says, yes, I wanted, you know. And so finally the father says, okay, go ahead. And he gets a little bit burned, you know. And once he's burned once and never do it again, you get that memory, see. So it's not that we contemplate, we remember all the details of our stay here. But we have some idea that we really slipped up, you know, and so we're not going to do it again. Krishna says, but we have the freedom to do it. We have the possibility to do it. It's not that Krishna binds us there and puts us in a cellar somewhere, you know. We can always deviate. Otherwise, without that freedom, there's no meaning to love. As soon as there's a coercion, there's no love. So Krishna is interested in love, not coercion. Marginal, yes, you can turn this way, that way.
And one more thing, does that mean that the fallen conditioned souls, are they continuing to fall, or is just like a set, like conditioned souls that just fell at one?
No, they've fallen.
It keeps on happening, like souls keep on falling from.
No. The analogy is that they're in a fallen condition. We're in a fallen condition, and you know, if you fall from human life, you can fall from human life into subhuman life. You know, you can lose the human form and go back, you go down to the ant form or the ant-eater, whatever, you know. But then once you go down there, you don't fall further. You gradually come up till you get human life again. You get another chance. But if you blow it and you commit grossly sinful activities, boom, down you go again. It's been happening for millions of births. Don't we want to end that? You're supposed to say yes at this point. One sec. All right, we have a question here from Mike. Give the mic to Mike.
So I think I heard you right. You're saying once you go to a lower life, like your example, anteater, you can't go to a lower form like a microorganism or an ant or a roach or something like that?
No. Do you want to go down there?
Absolutely not. I'm just trying to understand why wouldn't you be able to fall lower if you're an anteater that leads, you know, unkind life? You know what I mean?
Unkind? You mean because he eats?
Violent, or just, I mean, all anteaters, like all dogs, aren't kind, are they?
No. But the thing is, they're following. They don't have the higher intelligence, and therefore they're not responsible for their activity. No, the lions are not responsible for killing those gazelles, And the big fish are not responsible for eating the little fish.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they don't have the higher, brain. It's we.
They're not responsible for their decisions in
Yeah,
life.
yeah. It's just nature,
Got it.
But we are, because we can read Bhagavad Gita. All right, it's almost the time to end. How far did we get? Through 5, right? Yeah, I think we'll pick up there next time. But let me give you the verse I regretted not giving you last night. I mean, all the verses are nice, but this one is really nice. From the Krishna Karnamrita, near the end, Bilmangal Thakur writes, Jaya 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 Deva 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 Tribhavana Mangala Divyanama Deha Jaya 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 Deva Krishna Deva Shavana Mano Nayanama Tavatara. All glory, 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 Lord, all glory unto Thee, who with Thy holy name bless all 3 worlds and set them free. All glory, glory, glory unto Thee, O Krishna Dev, whose nectar floods our ears and eyes and hearts in endless waves. Isn't that a nice verse? You can offer it to the deity. Jaya, 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 Deva, Deva. Okay, one more. You like that one so much. So this is 2 verses from the Shikshastika. Lord Chaitanya says, Nadanang Najanang Nasundari. Now notice that there's 2 ways of chanting this. You can chant it just as 2-line verse. Nadanang Najanang Nasundarim Kapitam Va Jagadish Kamaye. Mama Janmani Janmanishwade Bhavata Bhakti Dahoi Tuki Tvahi. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety. Liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. Ayanandatan, same meter. Ayanandatanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam modo. Kripayata vapada pangajastita duli sadashang vichindaya. Your servant for eternity, this is right up pertinent to the class. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.